Welcome back to Country Maintenance. Well, you might remember the repair I did for shower neck that was leaking, or not. But anyway, today I'm going to be checking the drywall. We're going to be looking for any mold. If we have any mold, then we're going to gut it out and replace everything. If we have no mold, then we're just going to take out what we need to and replace it, remud it. This is all this loose material. We want to take this out, in that anything that sticks to the front of it is still just going to be able to pull away from the wall, and we don't want that. So anyway, we'll take all this material off. There is a little bit of surface mold here, and what we'll do is we'll scrape it off a little bit and see if there's any more. This is my own place, so on this one I get to do it however I want. Now somewhere else, if I had more mold, I'll probably just gut it all out and replace the little section here. But actually doesn't look too bad here. If it wasn't for mold, we wouldn't have cheese. Anyway, taking all this loose material off, just going to make everything come out much nicer. And what I'll do is this part that's got a little bit of stuff, I'll just take the paper off. Seems like it's just on the surface a little bit. It's no big deal. Again, no big deal to take all that stuff out either. It's up to you. As you can see, it's just surface. The other way is you could just spray it with some bleach and bleach it out. Fortunately, all this wasn't really going behind the wall or anything. It was just going right to the front right here. Okay. That looks good there. Take off any of these little fragments that are going to hang us up. And the rest will just mud in there. Take off this little portion down here. With my knife. Got nice and flush. And anything loose here. This looks loose here. Take that off. There'll be a little cleanup here, which is fine. Now I'll mud that all in. Clean everything up. And we'll retexture. No big deal. Okay. A little cleanup, a little patch up. be all set. And we'll want to kind of keep anything from getting in the threads there. Have some Teflon tape already around there, but it wouldn't hurt to kind of protect that portion while we mud it up. No big deal. That way we don't get anything on the deal, although if we ever needed to and we thread this out, it probably wouldn't really matter anyway. That's that. Okay, mixing up the mud. It's just 2 parts powder, 1 part water. It's actually a little thinner than I'd like it. Add a little more powder to it, or I can just give it a little bit longer to start to firm up a little bit. It's a 20-minute mud. It dries within 20 minutes, so you just want to use what you're going to use within 20 minutes. That's actually starting to look pretty good. It's still just a tiny bit runnier than I'd like to see it. But I think I can work with that. All right. I'll leave a little room around our deal. And squeeze a little into there. Once it's all finished, we'll use a wet rag to knock it down, wipe it down once it's all dried in. A little easier and better than sandpaper, in my opinion, in that there's no dust. Really don't want to get it in my deal, but around the front's fine. And again, I went a little too liquid with the deal. All this other stuff we're just gonna wash off, but it'll be alright. You'll see it's pretty easy to work with and pretty forgiving. And I probably should have made it a bit thicker again to get into there, but I'll just let it firm up a little bit, and when it's a little firmer, then it can fill in all that material. Right now it's just going to kind of run down, so not what we want. I can finish this part off. That'll work good for that. We're starting to firm up a little better. Not all the way yet, so I'll let it sit for a little bit and then come back to that. So it'll work easier for me for that when it firms in a little bit. Okay. Okay, so now my mud's had a chance to firm up a little bit more, and that'll make all this much easier. It actually clings to my knife, does more of what it's supposed to do. At least what we want it to do. And we'll smooth all that out better when we're ready. And I'm just avoiding getting my threads. I am filling in all my deals there. Okay, in this area, to get it flat, probably use a little bigger knife. Maybe. Just across here, because it's easy to get a low spot. That'll work good. Can always do a second coat of mud if we need to. I don't think I'll really need to. It's gonna work good. What we want is our deal to be nice and flat, nice and smooth before we apply our texture. And I keep winding up taking too much material out of that portion right here. which doesn't matter too much. Our escutcheon is going to cover that. The trim plate here, escutcheon. When we slide that forward, it's going to cover that. No big deal. And the rest we'll just clean up with a wet rag when we're, or a sponge when we're finished. And then we'll be ready for our texture. Nice and easy. This I can wipe off now, or I can clean up when I wipe down the rest. No biggie. There we go. The rest will clean up once it dries. Okay, so now it's all had a chance to dry. So I've just got my rag next to that, and we're just going to use the rag to clean things up, but also to smooth things out. And I'm going to start with my deal here, and the rest of that will be covered by the trim. And then we'll just use this to smooth it in around all the edges and knock down any high spots. Make it nice and smooth. And whatever you see in the patch, that's what you're going to see in the texture. So just get it nice and smooth. That's going to help everything come out right. Nothing too complicated here. And this part is going to be under the escutcheon, so it hardly matters. That part will get covered. And you can see we're nice and smooth. And we'll get the edges nice and smooth. And the rest will be just matching our texture. Here we go. Nice and easy. And next phase is texture. Okay, so now I'm getting the texture ready with some hot water. Let it sit in some hot water. Makes it work best. So I'll let it sit there. And then I noticed, I got my finger wet because I noticed that I kind of missed a line right here. So just gonna kind of get that out of there. Make that better. A little bit right there too. And again, whatever is showing through in the wall deal is going to show through in your texture. So here's what it is. I think it's going to be good. All right. Okay, so I got my texture heated up, and what we've got on the texture is you've got a, boy, it's really hard to see. Let me try to get some light here. You got a pressure adjustment, and then you've got a, this is going low pressure or high pressure. I'm going to go a little high on this one. And then on the front dial, again, it's hard to see in here, but we've got texture, fine, medium, and heavy. Medium's in the center, heavy's over to the right. And this texture looks a bit finer to me. It looks maybe medium, so I'm going to go with medium, and we'll test it out, and we'll see how it goes. Kind of the cool thing about the texture is it's, you know, I'm going to grab my tool real quick. I'll be right back. Yeah, the cool thing about the texture is you can redo it if you need to. You can coat it again and again and again until you get it just right. So if there's anything you need to work out, shaking it up real good is key. And I'm not going to be masking everything off. I'm just going to be using my bigger knife here as a little guide down below. Okay. So here we go, ready to apply it. Oops. Okay. I'm going to go in circular motions, holding it about 6 to 18 inches on the direction, so that'll work. And kind of overlapping our walls so we can make it blend in. Okay. And now we can clean up while we wait to knock down the texture. Got just my rag that I use to knock everything down, wipe everything down. And get the metal work probably first would be good. And it's just soap and water cleanup, so no big deal. But it's a little easier when it's still wet. No biggie. There we go. And then we'll be ready to knock it down. Okay, and the key with knocking it down is just keeping your blade straight. And this is the tricky part when you got other stuff in the way, but we'll manage. And I might go a little finer. This might be a little thicker than I want to go. That's alright. We can do it again. Another coat. Just have to let it dry for a little while, and then I'll come back and do it again. Make it a little finer. I think that was a little too thick. It's not real bad, but but I think I can make it blend to what we have already by making it a little bit finer. Yep, that'll work. Come back and do another round and just adjust our spray nozzle to be a little bit finer. Okay, so that was definitely too big on the texture size. I'm gonna go almost about as small as we can go. Just rotate the front dial over. And we may have to increase the pressure a little bit, which we can do this way, or not, but it may be okay right there. So, all right, I'll let it soak in some hot water again. Let the other old one dry and just kind of wipe it down, and then we'll start again. Yep, still wet. Oh, I shouldn't have touched it. I'll just wipe it down with a knife, take it flat. Sort of, doesn't want to go. It's got a little bump or something in it. Well, I'll let it dry and then I'll wipe it down and then we'll go again. Okay, so now the texturing that was wrong is dried in, and I just kind of wiped it down with my rag, got rid of the spots that I mostly wanted to, and now we've adjusted our deal to be lighter in the texture. Here goes.
In hindsight, I think lessening the pressure a little bit would have been better, in that less is more. You don't really need to spray it on so heavy here.
And that's going to be much smaller. And I've just overlapped it a little bit to bring it in. Okay, that should do good. I'll let that sit for a couple minutes. Now clean up the stuff that I got it on that I don't want it on. Again, our metal work kind of comes first. There we go, and then tile. And cement. No biggie. And then we'll knock it down. And if you use a smaller knife, it's sometimes a little easier. It just depends the size of the job and what you got going on. Just got a small knife here, and just gonna nice and gently this one. It's tricky when you got other stuff in the way, because you want to keep the blade nice and flat. Again, the key is going to be just blend it in to what we got going around it. Key is just hiding it. Do just fine. That should work. And if there's anything that you particularly don't like, you can respray it. That'll work for me. I think once we paint it in, it'll be just right. All right. Okay. That's right. Now I'm gonna paint it up. And if you want to blend even better, it's not a bad idea to use a primer, but it should work out just fine. And once everything dries up, we'll clean it up some more. But looks like our texture is gonna blend in good. Mainly 2 coats, but at least we can see the finish is just how I want it. There we go. Got a piece of brush in there. I cut it out. Maybe. Right there. Okay. All finished. Should work good. Just a little cleanup when it's all done. It's all dried in. Looks like our texture is gonna dry in perfect. All right, all fixed up.
Okay, here it is the next morning.
Standing on the edge of tomorrow.